So this is my pheidole node colony. Yesterday, I decided to make the rash decision to move them out of their Saturn into this MS nest. Didn't really have anything planned, so I kind of just winged it. And I can be a bit impatient, so I ended up removing the tubes and putting them straight in front of the new tube to go into the new nest. Luckily, they did decide that they did want to move. I think probably the main reason I decided to move them is purely down to the fact that they had started plastering their test tubes and I couldn't see what was going on. Neither could I really record any of it. But this colony really has come a long way in the last 9 weeks. They started with about 100 workers, and then within a couple of days, they started dying out, and I ended up getting down to maybe 40 at max. And they've just really bounced back with the daily feedings, 27-degree temps. They're just loving life at the minute. I'm going to put a picture on screen so then you can see what they looked like 9 weeks ago. Yeah, they weren't doing too good, were they? And now it's safe to say they're flourishing. Because of the way I orientated that tube, they found the new nest pretty quickly. And it didn't take long for them to send pheromones back and forward saying, oh, this is a better place we need to go. And they did start picking up brood and moving them and running through to take them into the new nest. To be honest, as far as it goes, I think this is probably one of the easiest moves I've had so far. However, it took 4 hours, but there was no heartbreak or no difficulties really. I kind of just let them do their thing. And they were starting to fill the nest quite quickly. They were exploring all the new spots, new chambers, and they did seem to quite like it. At this point, it was kind of just a bit of a waiting game, waiting for them to move over that whole test tube, so then I could then move another test tube in front. At this point, the move was very underway as the queens did start to flood the nest. I did think I only had 2 queens, but it turns out I've actually got 3, which I found out later on when I was having the last little look before I kind of left them alone. At this point here, we were sitting about the 10 to 15 minute mark since the move first started, and they had evacuated about half of the brood into the first chamber of the nest. And at this point, I was starting to realise how fast I'd actually grown these in about 9 weeks. I found it really funny to watch them flood the tube coming through with all the brood, and there was quite a lot of major brood in there as well. At this point, we were about halfway through the move, and I had taken out the tube that they had been moving out originally and moved the other tube in front of the entrance port. They were much slower moving out of this tube. I think it was mainly down to the fact that there was test tube inserts, so it was limiting the flow of workers coming in and out of the tube. And they just didn't seem as bothered in general. They got the queens out of the main tube into the nest now, so I think they were relaxed a bit more and they were kind of just piddling along, come back and forwards, just grabbing the brood when they felt like it. There was a large amount of workers that ended up staying in the outlet port for the test tubes, so I did end up unscrewing that, plugging the holes with cotton, just to kind of get it moving a bit quicker out of it so I could take it out. In the end, I did decide to remove the tubes and put them in their new outworlds and just run a tube coming through and into their new outworlds. And I just laced about 6 inches of the tube with mineral oil just to stop them climbing back up. The rest of the stragglers that didn't move out of the Saturn, I ended up having to pick them up individually on a piece of cotton. But there wasn't that many, it was only about 30 of them, so it didn't take too long to do. But now that the move was over, I could kind of just relax, sit back and just watch them in their nest, doing their thing. And there was quite a lot of workers in the outworld, so I did end up feeding them a waxworm and they did seem to go crazy for it. It's the first time I've ever fed them a waxworm, so it was quite an interesting response. I did crush the head and make a little cut on the side of the waxworm just to allow them to be able to get in there and break it down quicker once it was completely subdued. but they do have a lot of nerves that tend to wiggle around even after they should be dead. It was just absolutely amazing getting to watch the sheer size of this colony, considering how short of a time I've had them for and how much they've come since I first got them, and just how much they're flourishing and doing well. The nest I moved them into is the Wakooshi MS 3.5, and after using this nest I would recommend it for pretty much any small species. They'd absolutely love it, and I'm planning to move my Caribou diverser into it when they do arrive. But overall I'd say it went pretty smooth, and there wasn't really any hiccups, maybe just a couple workers that escaped while I was putting out test tubes and putting in the tubes to connect everything, but it went pretty well. If you did enjoy this video, it is appreciated if you would subscribe and like it. Comment would also be nice to let me know what you think of the video, whether you think it's a load of rubbish or if it's half decent. But yeah, I'll catch everybody in a little bit. Bye!